Dracula's daughter, wow. Let me preface this really quickly. Dracula's daughter gets 5 stars, 5 big ones. That is a great horror movie, and it is definitely one I would like to say worth a second look, but you know, a lot of people don't even watch it the first time. Dracula's daughter did not do well at the box office when it first came out, and it never caught on with the same level of popularity as the other films, even in syndication. And I remember when I was a little kid, we used to watch Universal horror movies on Shock Theater, Channel 17, Philadelphia, the Dr. Shock show, Mad Theater, Horror Theater, double feature on Saturdays. And I remember watching, really being enthralled with Dracula, Bride of Frankenstein, the Mummy sequels, the Wolfman, of course. Dracula's Daughter, I was a little kid. I remember watching it. About 5 minutes into it, I just got bored and I kind of zoned in and out, and I kind of just remembered the ending where I'm not going to give away the ending, but where Dracula's daughter, Gloria Holden, Countess Zaleska, meets her demise. I did not watch the film for 40 years. Yeah, 40 years went by before I gave it a second look. When I was writing my book, Universal Monsters and Neurotics, Children of the Night and Their Hang-Ups, which is available on Amazon, I decided to watch Dracula's Daughter for the second time and the first time in 4 decades, and it blew me away. It is a fantastic film. Is it a horror movie? Of course it's a horror movie. It's about a vampire, vampiress, however you want to say. Or, she might not be a vampire or a vampiress, because there's the possibility that she may be psychologically confused and think she is a vampire. And that's not mentioned in the film, but that's a theory that fans of Universal Monsters, some of them have. Just how with Son of Dracula, some people say that it's Dracula, and other people say that Lon Chaney Jr. is actually Alucard, the son, not Dracula, but the real son of Dracula, and that it's a spin-off, not a sequel to Dracula. Dracula's daughter, Zaleska, is the daughter of Count Dracula, and she cannot escape his shadow, and her shtick is she wants to be cured of being a vampire. And the death of Dracula does not release her, so she seeks a release. And you have a vampire who wants to be human and latches on to her humanity, but she can't get there. She tries, and it's a tragic tale. I don't want to give too much away, but I don't think I'd be giving too much away if I said that her struggle to become a human being as opposed to succumbing to vampirism, well, you can kind of figure out where the story heads. Dracula's Daughter in many ways is melodramatic. It is, and that's not saying that in a bad way. I don't, melodrama, it's melodramatic. Well, no, melodrama is basically a drama that is a little, not realistic, like fantasy elements, or, say a Private Eye drama film where you have 2 or 3 shootouts. Well, that's not realistic that the hero would survive, but he does. So it's not pure drama, it's melodrama. And with Dracula's Daughter, because you have that dark fantasy element, the dramatic aspects of it, and I don't want to, part of me wants to call it a horror version of Mildred Pierce, but Mildred Pierce came much later, and the film noir genre came much later, but there are some similarities. There's that hopelessness, there's that despair, and it's not depressing. I won't go so far to say that it is a film that leaves you kind of, despondent. I wouldn't say that. It's not a happy ending. It's a tragic ending to the film. It's a tragic story. It's the tragedy of Countess Zaleska, and that makes it quite interesting. However, it doesn't make it it's not like Frankenstein or Bride of Frankenstein or even Dracula, where you have a lot of, for lack of a better description, monster action. Even The Invisible Man had a lot of monster action. This movie moves forward more dramatically, and that's a good thing. It makes it stand out. It makes it very unique viewing. It's just not something that is going to captivate little kids or captivate people looking for monster mayhem or something like that from the, you know. Now, not to say that the Universal monster films weren't well crafted. Of course they were. But this one was a bit, I don't want to say talky, because talky kind of, it hints that they're saying something but not really saying anything. The dialogue in Dracula's Daughter does propel the story, and it makes it, you know, quite good. But you have to be a real fan of Universal monsters, and you have to be willing to give something a little bit different a fair chance. If I had to book this movie at a revival theater, I would probably triple feature it. I would triple feature it between Dracula, and then Dracula's Daughter, and then Return of the Vampire. Now, I know Return of the Vampire is not a Universal movie. It was made by a different studio, but it's the most of us can, if you're a fan, you kind of see it as the unofficial, in name only sequel to Dracula. Excuse me, not in name only. He's not Dracula. You know, but he might as well be. But if we were to stick with any Universal film, I kind of would book. I would probably, like, we got to start it with Dracula. Then you do the sequel, and then maybe you do Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein, or you know, bookend it with Frankenstein. You know, in other words, it would not be something that might succeed if it stood alone, fair or not. You know, again, it's, you know, Dracula's Daughter was and is not the top film. It's you're not going to see Countess Zaleska merchandise. That's unfortunate, and I really wish this film would receive a bit more attention from fans, horror fans. Not to say that it hasn't received any attention. I mean, there's books out on the subject. There's Riley's original screenplay book, and then there's the Dracula's Daughter Scripts from the Crypt book, which is I did not read that one, but I should. There's commentary out there on the film. There's critical writing on the film, but it never really caught on to the same degree. And part of the reason for that is the film, Universal was still finding its footing. They didn't know how to do a direct sequel to Dracula because Dracula was killed at the end of his film. And in those days, well, you know, they didn't just willy-nilly bring characters back. That came later. So they did a spin-off, Dracula's Daughter, and it just didn't click. And it's a shame, but again, you know, please, you know, dig this film out and dig the film. You will dig the film. Dracula's Daughter is an excellent, excellent classic 1930s horror movie with some spooky elements and some drama and characterization that you probably won't see in other genre films. It kind of makes it very unique, but in a way I understand why it didn't do well, because it's so atypical to the rest of the Universal monster films. And in other ways, I wonder why it hasn't seen a massive resurgence, because I think it really, really deserves it. I mean, if you're a hardcore Universal fan, you're really going to like this film.